Hello, and welcome to my presentation on Bernie Madoff's $50 billion Ponzi scheme. This is a quick overview summary of the case. Bernie Madoff operated a Ponzi scheme. He created up to an estimated $50 billion of losses for investors. That's the number the article said, but other sources said up to $65 million. It's said to be the biggest fraud committed in the history of Wall Street. He offered too good to be true offers of low risk and high returns, which is almost never the case. He was able to offer steadily around 12 to 13% return. And this all occurred from 1980s to 2008. And in these cases, a lot of times the fraud is caught when there are more redemptions than the firm can pay out. And in 2008, the financial situation was obviously very bad, and people wanted to withdraw the money, and Bernie didn't have it anymore. Since they just didn't have that money, it just all fell apart. It was impressive that he was able to keep it going as long as he did, because the Ponzi scheme before that only went on for about a year before it was caught, but he did have some pretty wealthy investors. So this is how the article describes a Ponzi scheme. Essentially, what a Ponzi scheme is using new investors' money to pay out the expected returns instead of the investments they are saying to the clients they are actually doing. So you can see on the left, their regular balance sheet cash investments naturally grow from legitimate business, and worth increases because of that. Client deposits are still but it's not a reasonable expectation of 12, 13%. And then on the right, the depositing scheme, since there are no legitimate investments, clients are lied to about what they're invested in, and then given the returns that are actually just the deposits of other clients. Since there's no legitimate cash investments coming in, the own part of the balance sheet decreases, and so does the company's worth, and this creates a constant need for new investors to keep it going. These are the key parties in the case. We know obviously Bernie Madoff was a key party. He's on the right. He was said to start it off as a legit financial advisor, a market maker. He opened an investment advisory business on the side where his father-in-law recommended clients to him. But once he started losing money, he didn't want to own up to it to his father-in-law and his father-in-law's friends. So he covered it up with fake trades, and that is said to be how this huge fraud started. And then Annette Bongorno, she was his bookkeeper. The picture on the left there. Some places online called her Bernie's longtime assistant, but the FBI called her his bookkeeper, so we'll go with that. What she would do is she would research the best performing stocks the last month and then make up how many shares to say the investors bought, and then record those gains in the client statements each month. And then there were definitely other people involved. I just put on here his associates. The original article didn't mention anyone else. But it was said that many of his associates claimed that they had no idea about the scam. That's probably pretty unlikely. And then I included their prison sentences just because it's interesting. Bernie's 150 years, Annette's only 6 years, and then the associates were varying sentences. These are the relevant fraud risk factors. Obviously, the fraud risk triangle, uh, opportunity, pressure, rationalization. The opportunity was there. Bernie's company was not registered with the SEC because he never wanted to be audited, and he tried to hide it, usually as part of his actual legitimate work. And there was also collusion with other people he worked with, his bookkeeper, some of his associates. So we had the opportunity to do it with help. The pressure aspect we talked about earlier all started with his father-in-law and his friends. There was pressure, especially when he lost some of their money, and it's his father-in-law. He didn't want to admit up to it, so he kept hiding, and then he kept having to hide because once you start, it's hard to stop. And that was probably his rationalization, is once he started it, he had to keep hiding to make sure it didn't come to light. And then the last factor I just threw in there is that Investors should have had more suspicion about the too good to be true claims and the constant 12 to 13% returns, even when the market was bad. That's an indicator that there might be some fraud going on. And these are the primary lessons you can learn from this case. Beware of too good to be true claims. It's hard because you don't want to miss out on new opportunities, but be able to recognize real businesses. Make sure the firm's recognize is registered with the proper regulator, usually the SEC. Try to know where your money's going. Try to understand the investment strategy, have some security in that. Beware of too much secrecy going on in companies, which was the case here. And then in your work with money, beware of the slippery slope. Doing something dishonest once might cause it a snowball. This is kind of what happened here, although he was dishonest from the beginning. But just it's a lesson to always be honest from the beginning. This whole case could be avoided if Bernie had chosen to be honest from the beginning, but he chose not to be. And thank you for watching. I hope that was a good summary.